Hello, citizens of Earth, it's me, Jared, and welcome to Station 204 for your space news for September 11th, 2019. And we had a lot of stuff happen since our last space news, so let's go ahead and go straight into traffic. We're heading to Russia to start, where a rocket converted ballistic missile left the pad at the Police Cosmodrome on August 30th at 1400 Universal Time. It successfully placed its satellite payload, Cosmos 2540, into a near-circular 950-kilometer sun-synchronous orbit. Cosmos 2540 will take geodetic data, like measurements of the Earth's gravitational field, tectonic plate motions, and tides. In China, Kaizhou 1A lifted off from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center at August 30th at 2341 Universal Time, carrying two small satellite payloads for the Chinese Academy of Sciences and Space City Company Limited. Both were successfully deployed in a polar orbit 600 kilometers above the Earth. Also on September 6th, the Indian Space Research Organization attempted to become the fourth country to land a payload on the surface of the moon with their Vikram Lander as a part of the Chandrayaan 2 mission. Controllers lost contact several minutes before landing, which was scheduled for 2023 Universal Time. However, over the past few days, ISRO has announced that they've actually found the Vikram lander, and it's in one piece on the surface of the moon, and they're trying to communicate with it. So we'll keep you updated, and hopefully we get to hear the best possible outcome. Soyuz MS-14 undocked from the International Space Station and performed a perfect return to Earth on September 6th, landing in Kazakhstan at 2132 Universal Time. Skyby F-850 was returned as planned after performing a multitude of tests. Luckily, it did so without taking control of the International Space Station and somehow dooming humanity forever. I don't know any small launchers that can lift themselves to a geosynchronous orbit, let alone a payload. But two companies are coming together, and that could be happening relatively soon. Relativity Space is developing the Terran 1, the world's first 3D printed rocket. And when I say 3D printed rocket, I don't mean a part or two, I mean the whole rocket enchilada. And they've got the world's largest metal 3D printer, which they've dubbed Stargate. The next piece of the equation is momentous. They are developing in-space shuttle services that can move satellites from one orbit to another. And they've struck a deal to purchase a Terran 1 launch from Relativity, with an option for 5 more. So Relativity will send the payload as far as their Terran 1 rocket can take it, and then the momentous shuttle will bring it the rest of the way to geo-orbit from there. Here's why I think this is important. Traditionally, small sats would have to ride share on a large rocket to get anywhere near geo-orbit. This announcement is enabling small satellites to get to places like geo and opens up institutions like colleges to fly and operate missions from their own campuses. What would you fly to geo if you could? Well, leave your suggestions in the comments below. This year we interviewed Momentous on Orbit 12.10, and last year we interviewed Relativity on Orbit 11.19. So make sure to check out those episodes for more info on the both of them. And now from really small satellites to really small organisms, we're going to go down to New Zealand with a really small Lisa Stojanovski.
I love that the Dragon spacecraft is able to bring cargo from the space station back down to Earth. It lets researchers do analysis that simply can't be done on the space station because of limited time and resources. But if we're going to actually go and live on the Moon and Mars, we need to do some serious analysis on things like space mining and oxygen generation. And that's exactly the kind of cargo that Dragon brought back to Earth this last week. I hear a lot of talk about how space mining will enable human settlements to be self-sufficient away from Earth, and most of those ideas involve robotic machinery to collect the raw materials and then turn them into useful products. But what if there was an easier way? The BioRock experiment just attempted to grow microbes on slabs of basalt in space. And they chose basalt for good reason. It's one of the most common rocks on both the Moon and Mars. You're probably thinking this experiment has one fatal flaw. They didn't actually grow the microbes on the Moon or Mars. But that's exactly why they used a centrifuge to grow the samples in 0 gravity, Martian gravity, and 1G. Once back on Earth, the researchers will examine the liquid soup that was surrounding the rock samples and measure amounts of minerals such as iron, calcium, and magnesium that the bacteria have managed to pull out of the rock. And here's my favorite part. If the microbes are still able to digest rocks in microgravity or low gravity, we could use them to turn Moon or Mars rocks into soil and nutrients for growing plants off Earth. But wouldn't it be great if we could grow something that would both provide oxygen and food? That's exactly the kind of sample that Dragon just brought home. You might be more familiar with it as an ingredient in your green smoothie, but besides being a supplement superfood, chlorella algae was just grown for 6 months on the space station. It was part of a new advanced life support system that the German Space Agency was testing. That life support system uses chemical processes to recycle carbon dioxide back to oxygen, but some of the carbon dioxide gets sent to the algae growth chamber instead. Now, this was just a demonstration model, so it didn't produce enough oxygen for even just one astronaut. But if the samples brought back on Dragon show that the algae was happy in microgravity, then the project will be scaled up to supply enough oxygen for one crew member. I'm more curious about how the algae gets turned from a soupy mess into something that I can eat. Apparently, it's a great source of vitamin B12, unsaturated fatty acids, and protein. But would you give it a go? Apparently, it's supposed to taste like sushi.
That sounds awkwardly delicious. Well, now let's go from really small things to something really big. Here's Jade Kim.
Lately, China has been killing it when it comes to contributions to astronomy, and now, move over Arecibo, there's a new giant radio telescope in town. That's right, China's FAST is now fully operational. Besides being a marvel of technical construction, FAST, which stands for 500-meter aperture spherical radio telescope, will also emphasize international collaboration by eventually being open to astronomers from all over the world. Or at least, we hope. You see, FAST has just one final hoop to jump through, and that is the National Construction Acceptance at the end of September. After it passes, the telescope will then be open for use on the global scale, pending Chinese government approval, of course. Although it's just now becoming fully operational, FAST has already been scientifically functional since 2016. It had its first discovery of 2 new pulsars in August 2017 and has since discovered 130 new pulsar candidates. So why radio astronomy? Well, because looking into the cosmos with radio-tinted glasses not only allows us to peer into the most distant crevices of the early universe, but also aliens. Some of the things FAST will be studying include pulsars, fast radio bursts, interstellar molecules, a couple of major surveys, and of course, interstellar communication signals, aka aliens. Replacing the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico as the world's largest radio telescope, FAST is comprised of one giant dish containing 4,450 individual panels. With FAST's remarkable sensitivity, its future contributions to radio astronomy will be profound to say the least, whether we're peering deeply into the process that led our galaxy to evolve or finally getting a text back from our neighboring civilizations. One thing's for certain, the journey has just begun.
And now let's turn our attention to our local star, and for our space weather, here's Dr.